Greetings. Hurricane Melissa, which hit Jamaica on October 28th, 2025, dealt us a terrible blow. And rebuilding the country, especially in Western Jamaica, after the loss and damage caused by that climate-related hurricane, which I think generally it's accepted as being a climate change-related hurricane, is going to cost our country billions of dollars. The general estimate, the approved official estimate of the value of the damage done to Jamaica's physical assets, private and public assets, is $8.8 billion US. I think it was in December the government announced a package of financing from multilateral institutions totaling $6.7 billion to help to finance Jamaica's recovery. Now, 2.4 or thereabouts of that is really money that hasn't been committed yet. It's money that they hope to be able to attract from private sector investors in projects in Jamaica. So we don't really know whether or not that will transpire. But there was $700 million from the existing disaster financing mechanisms that we've heard about, the catastrophe bond, the CRIF insurance arrangement, the various funds that are established under our laws and funded by the budget each year. And those total around $700 million. And that leaves about $3.4 billion of new sovereign debt that Jamaica may be borrowing to finance our recovery. Now, I think it's important to recognize that the rate of interest on that, which has not been announced yet, but at current rates would be in the region of 6 to 7%, because the base rate in international lending is now at around 5.3%. And there'd typically be a margin for country risk and other factors of another 1% or so, taking our borrowing cost to somewhere between 6 and 7%. On $3.4 billion, that's a lot of money that we have to find each year just to pay the interest on those loans. And I wanted to mention that there are creative mechanisms which are emerging as a result of the call for climate justice. Climate justice meaning that countries like Jamaica have really made little or no contribution to the global warming that is causing change in our climate. Vast majority of the contribution to global warming has come from the big countries, the wealthier countries, which industrialized over the last 2 centuries and contributed so much of the kind of polluting gases that are the reason behind climate change. So that creates a justice issue, because we are the ones bearing the brunt of the effects of climate change, while others, wealthier than us, are the ones who have contributed most to the cause of climate change. And because of that, in climate injustice, there have been various mechanisms developed in recent years that help countries like Jamaica finance the recovery from climate disasters. Barbados led the way in 2022 with a debt swap, which they were helped with by the IDB, the Inter-American Development Bank, and the Nature Conservancy, who put up a guarantee for some new borrowing by Barbados, $150 million US, which they used to pay out existing loans that Barbados had, bonds on the market, which were at market rates of interest and were much higher than was desirable to finance this type of activity. And the new borrowings were at much lower rates because of the credit enhancement, the support, the guarantee provided by the IDB and the Nature Conservancy. And that difference in the borrowing costs between the old debt that was being retired and the new borrowings was sufficient to fund $50 million US over 15 years, which Barbados committed to putting into a conservancy fund to be spent on preserving the environment in Barbados, in particular marine-related activities there. So that's the sort of thing we should be looking at doing to try and reduce the cost to the country of the type of investments that have to be made in order to address the costs of climate disasters, which we are going to be suffering, it looks like, almost every year. Hopefully not every year, but we can assume there'll be more to come. So there are some other mechanisms along these lines which have emerged recently, which Jamaica must be exploring. The Fund for Responding to Loss or Damage, the FRLD, was set up under the COP process, which is the international process for trying to get to grips with this threat of climate change. And this fund, the Fund for Responding to Loss and Damage, provides grants, not loans, money that doesn't have to be repaid, in other words, to countries like Jamaica that are unfairly, in a sense, burdened by the costs of addressing the losses and damage from climate disasters in this time of climate change. We should be looking to try and draw down funds from that fund. There's also the so-called Climate Vulnerable Forum, which has been set up on the V20, is a mechanism where partners who have loans to Jamaica could be approached to forgive or cancel existing bilateral loans, meaning loans from one country to another, in our case from, say, a development partner country to Jamaica. And we would commit in exchange for that debt forgiveness to putting a similar amount of money in an expenditure plan around building resilience to climate change, so that instead of paying back sovereign debt with interest, we're investing in stronger coastal arrangements, river training, fixing our gullies, and dealing with our road network in a way to make it more resilient, housing issues and that sort of thing. And then there's the Green Climate Fund, which is another one of these windows where you can draw down loans at very low rates of interest, 0 to 1%, for financing climate resilience projects. And that's, again, something that we would love to see Jamaica explore and maximize. I raise these things because if we're going into a new era of heavy borrowing because of the problems caused by Melissa, we have to do it in a way that doesn't burden us unduly with the cost of carrying much more debt in the years to come, because we've spent the last 15 years trying to get ourselves out of that problem. And we must leverage the fact that climate justice demands that a country like Jamaica, faced with the problems that we now have, be given fullest access to these types of facilities. This is not old style thinking. This is current and modern and futuristic thinking, and Jamaica must be ahead of the curve in that regard.